In Search of the Miraculous by P.D. Ouspensky, Chapter 7. On one occasion, when I was talking with Gurdjieff, I asked him whether he considered it possible to attain cosmic consciousness, not for a brief moment only, but for a longer period. I understood the expression cosmic consciousness in the sense of a higher consciousness, possible for man in the sense in which I had previously written about in my book Tertium Organum. I do not know what you call cosmic consciousness, said G. It is a vague and indefinite term. Anyone can call anything he likes by it. In most cases, what is called cosmic consciousness is simply fantasy, associative daydreaming, connected with intensified work of emotional center. Sometimes it comes near to ecstasy, but most often it's merely a subjective emotional experience on the level of dreams. But even apart from all this, before we can speak of cosmic consciousness, we must define in general what consciousness is. How do you define consciousness? Consciousness is considered to be indefinable. Indefinable? I said. And indeed, how can it be defined if it is an inner quality? With the ordinary means at our disposal, it's impossible to prove the presence of consciousness in another man. We know it only in ourselves. All this is rubbish, said G. The usual scientific sophistry. It is time you got rid of it. Only one thing is true in what you have said, and that is that you can know consciousness only in yourself. Observe that I say you can know, for you can know it only if you have it. When you have not got it, you can know that you have not got it, not at that very moment, but afterwards. I mean that when it comes again, you can see that it has been absent for a long time, and you can find or remember the moment when it disappeared and when it reappeared. You can also define the moments when you are nearer to consciousness and further away from consciousness. But by observing in yourself the appearance and the disappearance of consciousness, you will inevitably see one fact which you neither see nor acknowledge now, and that is that moments of consciousness are very short and are separated by long intervals of completely unconscious mechanical workings of the machine. You will then see that you can think, feel, act, speak, work without being conscious of it. And if you learn to see it in yourselves, the moments of consciousness and the long periods of mechanicalness, you will as infallibly see in other people when they are conscious of what they are doing and when they are not. Your principal mistake consists in thinking that you always have consciousness, and in general, either that consciousness is always present or that it is never present. In reality, consciousness is a property which is continually changing. Now it is present, now it is not present. And there are different degrees and different levels of consciousness. Both consciousness and different degrees of consciousness must be understood in oneself by sensation, by taste. No definitions can help you in this case, and no definitions are possible so long as you do not understand what you have to define. And science and philosophy cannot define consciousness, because they want to define it where it does not exist. It is necessary to distinguish consciousness from the possibility of consciousness. We have only the possibility of consciousness and rare flashes of it. Therefore, we cannot define what consciousness is. I cannot say what was said about consciousness became clear to me at once, but one of the subsequent talks explained to me the principles on which these arguments were based. On one such occasion, At the beginning of a meeting with G, put on one occasion, at the beginning of a meeting, G put the question to which all those present had to answer in turn. And the question was, what is the important thing that we notice during self-observation? Some of those present said that during attempts at self-observation, what they had felt particularly strongly was an incessant flow of thoughts, which they found impossible to stop. Others spoke of the difficulty of distinguishing the work of one center from the work of another. I had evidently not altogether understood the question, or I answered my own thoughts, because I said that what struck me most was the connectedness of one thing with another in the system, the wholeness of the system, as if it were an organism, and the entirely new significance of the word to know, which included not only the idea of knowing this thing or that thing, but the connection between this thing and everything else. G was obviously dissatisfied with our replies. I had already begun to understand him in such circumstances, and I saw that what he expected from us, indications of something definite that we had either missed or failed to understand. Not one of you has noticed the most important thing that I have pointed out to you, he said. That is to say, not one of you has noticed that you do not remember yourselves. He gave particular emphasis to these words. You do not feel yourselves. You are not conscious of yourselves. With you, it observes just as it speaks. It thinks, it laughs. You do not feel. I observe. I notice. I see. Everything still is noticed, is seen. In order really to observe oneself, one must first of all remember oneself. And again, he emphasized these words. Try to remember yourselves when you observe yourselves, and later on, tell me the results. Only those results will have any value that are accompanied by self-remembering. Otherwise, you yourselves do not exist in your observations, in which case you are all your observations are worth. In which case, what are all your observations worth? These words of G made me think a great deal. It seemed to me at once that they were the key to what he had said before about consciousness, but I decided to draw no conclusions whatever, but to try to remember myself while observing myself.